Hello, Middle One students, this is Mr. Moataz Helal with you, and today I'm going to explain poetry. I know that you forget poetry all the time, so I thought of why don't I just explain poetry to them and leave it on YouTube so they can just listen to it again and again. We have poetry, it's just one poem for the second term called Great, Wide, Beautiful, Wonderful World. This is the only poem that we have. I will explain the first stanza line by line, the second and the third and the fourth stanzas, and actually I will answer all the questions with you, so I will explain the whole thing with you today. Shall we start? We shall start. Here we have a poem written by someone called William Brighty Rands, called Great, Wide, Beautiful, Wonderful World. Basically, the poet in this poem talks about the world. And when he decided to speak about the world, he used many adjectives to describe the world. We have the word great, this is the first, wide, beautiful, and wonderful. 4 adjectives to describe the world. Why? Of course, he loves the world so much then that he's using the word great to describe, great, like huge, and wide, like this room is wide, wide in space. Beautiful looks nice, and wonderful. He thinks that the world is beautiful, wonderful, wide, and beautiful, and all these things. How? Let's see the first stanza. What does he say in the first stanza? Let's just move a little bit upwards. So the first stanza he says, great, wide, beautiful, wonderful world, with the wonderful water round you curled, and the wonderful grass upon your breast. World, you are beautifully dressed. So basically in the first stanza he just talks about one thing, which is the beauty of the world. He thinks that the world is beautiful. How? Let's see. Great, wide, beautiful, wonderful world, which is like the title, with the wonderful water round you curled. What does the word curl mean? You know when something curls? Curled. Like when you look at the earth, if you go on the moon and just look down at the earth, you can see that the earth takes this round shape, and when it takes this round shape, you feel as if the water is curled around the world. So he says, with the wonderful water, the water is amazing, and around you curled, like moved in a circle. With the wonderful water round you curled, the water is around you, and the wonderful grass. On the earth, yes, we can see grass, but he said, and the wonderful grass upon your breast. Breast? Yes. Breast means chest. I have a chest here, but the world doesn't have a chest, and this is what we call a personification. A personification is like when you describe something or an animal as somebody or as a person. That's a personification, don't forget. So, and the wonderful grass upon your breast. The world doesn't have breasts. The world has grass, yes, on the surface of the earth, but it doesn't have breast or chest, and this is why it's a personification. In the last line he says, world, he's calling the world. World, you are beautifully dressed. You are wearing beautiful clothes. Dressed beautifully, you're wearing beautiful clothes. He thinks that the world is like someone or a lady who is wearing a beautiful dress. But you should ask yourself, what is the dress? The dress is 2 things. What is the dress? We have water and grass. He thinks that the world is beautiful because the grass and the water make the world look beautiful. But wait, can we wear grass? No. Can we wear water? No. That's a metaphor, comparing grass and water as a dress that can be worn. And the last line, there is a personification because the world cannot wear anything. So that's a personification in the last line. Here there is a personification. Here and also here. The last 2 lines, 2 different personifications. The poet compares the world to a person who has a chest, and the poet compares the world to a person who can be wearing beautiful dress. So these are two different personifications. This is the first line. So this is the first stanza. What about the rhyme scheme? We have rhyme scheme here. The first line ends with the word world. All of you know that the first line is always A. World, A. This is the rhyme scheme, huh? What about curled? World, curled. So it's going to be A as well. What about breast? Does it go with curled? Does it rhyme with it? No. So this is going to be B. Breast, dressed. They have the same rhyme. So this is going to be B. So the rhyme scheme is AA, BB. What about the other sound devices? Look at the first line. We have wide, wonderful, world. The three words begin with the sound W, and this is what we call correct, an alliteration. An alliteration is like when two or more words on the same line begin with the same consonant sound. They begin with the same W sound, and this makes a musical sound. The second line, we have with, wonderful, water. Three words that begin with W sound. Again, this is an alliteration. That's it. So this is the whole meaning of the stanza. Here we have the difficult words. Here we have the paraphrase, and don't forget, paraphrase means explain or explanation. So this is the paraphrase of the first stanza. Here we have the figures of speech and the wonderful grass upon your breasts. That's a personification. The poet personifies the world as someone who has a chest. World, you are beautifully dressed. Again, personification. The poet personifies the world as someone who's wearing a beautiful dress. And here with someone with a chest. Sound devices, we have the rhyme scheme, which is AABB. That's it. Great, wide, beautiful, wonderful world. Wah, wah, wah. Alliteration makes a musical sound. Here we have another alliteration with wonderful, water. The repetition of wah makes a musical sound. That was the first stanza. So easy. The world is beautiful. It's covered in grass and water. That's it. Let's move to the second stanza. Here. Now it's time for the second stanza. The wonderful air is over me, and the wonderful wind is shaking the tree. It walks on the water and whirls the mills and talks to itself on tops of the hills. So what does the poet want to say from this stanza? Here we have something to say. Basically, in the second stanza, he's talking about the air, the wind, the moving air, which is the wind. It can make a lot of things. He says in the first line, the wonderful air is over me. The air is above the poet. The poet is walking, and the air is just above him. The wonderful air is over me, and the wonderful wind, the movement of the air, the moving air, and the wonderful wind is shaking the tree. In this stanza, which is very simple, 4 lines, he just wants to tell us that the air is so powerful. The air is so strong. How? Number 1, it can shake the trees. Shake like make them move, you know? So the wonderful air is over me, and the wonderful wind is shaking the tree. It walks on the water. Wait, can the air walk? Can the air walk? The air cannot walk. Who can walk? We humans can walk. And that's what we call a personification. Actually, the poet personifies the air as somebody who can walk. It walks on the water. What? Walks on the water? What does he want to say? We understand that he's comparing the air to a person who can walk. But what does he mean by this? He means that the air can be anywhere. The air can be on the water, can be above him, and it can be on the tops of the hills. Let's continue. It walks on the water and whirls the mills. What is the mill? Here I will show you what the mill is. So basically, we have something like that. There's something like that which we call a mill. You know the windmill? The windmill is this thing which moves by the power of the wind, and we can use it to make electricity or generate electricity. So this is something called a mill, and this is called the windmill. So this windmill moves by the power of the air. The air pushes it to turn. So whirls meals actually he's like the wind can spin the blades of the mill. So this is called a mill. And these are called the blades of the mill. So the blades of the mill spin or like move in a circle because of the wind. The wind can make them turn. So basically the poet says that the air is so strong because it can shake the trees and make the mills or the blades of the mills move in a circle or spins them. And this shows that the air is so strong and talks to itself on tops of the hills. Wait, what's meant by talks to itself? How can the air talk? The air cannot talk. And that's another personification because the air cannot talk, comparing the air to a person who can talk and talks to itself. But what does he mean by that? He means that the air can be on the tops of the hills because when you go on the tops of the hills, you can hear the sound of the wind. And this is the loudest. You can hear the sound of the wind so loud when you are on the top of the hill and talks to itself on the tops of the hills. So what is the hill? Something like a mountain, but small one. So the hill is a small mountain. And that's the hill. So the overall meaning of the second stanza is that he's saying that the air is so strong because the air can do a lot of things. One of them is shaking the trees. The air is so strong, the wind is so strong that it can shake the trees. And also it walks in the water, it has the ability to be everywhere and whirls the mills. Whirls like spins. The mills, this is the mill, but he means that it makes the blades of the mill move in a circle. These are the blades and the whole thing is called a mill. And talks to itself. The air cannot talk, the wind cannot talk. That's a personification on the tops of the hills, on the hilltops, like small mountains. On the top, you can hear the wind very loudly. And this is what he means. So what is the meaning of the difficult words? I just wrote some difficult words here. And also here we have the paraphrase, which you can see. This is the explanation of the poem. So when in the exam, a question says paraphrase the stanza, this means that you have to write this. This is the explanation of the stanza. And these are the figures of speech and talks to itself. Actually, the air cannot talk. The wind cannot talk. And this is why he said the poet personifies the air as someone who can talk and it talks to itself and it walks on the water. That's a personification because the poet personifies the air as someone who can walk. We have sound devices and the rhyme scheme. Oh, we didn't say the rhyme scheme. Shall we say the rhyme scheme? We forgot. What about the first word? Me. The first line ends with me, and that's a. Tree. Me, tree, and that's a as well. Mills. Does it rhyme with tree? No. So it's gonna be B. Hills, mills, hills, mills. They have the same rhyme, and this is gonna be B. So the rhyme scheme is AA, BB again. Do we have like alliteration or consonants or something like that? Let's see the first line. The wonderful air is over me. Nothing. And the wonderful wind is shaking the tree. We have something here. We have wonderful wind. You remember what this is called? Alliteration, correct. So this is an alliteration. And this makes a musical sound. Don't forget, wonderful wind is shaking the tree. It walks on the water. Look at this. Walks, water. And whirls. Again, the wahd sound. This is an alliteration as well. Again, it's the same thing. And whirls the mills and talks to itself on tops of the hills. There can be some other alliterations or consonances, but actually we don't care. We just need to focus on the ones we have. And here we have also, as I said, AABB. It walks on the water and whirls. Wah, wah, wah. The repetition of wah makes a musical sound because it's an alliteration. And talks to itself on tops of the hills. Talks, tops, ta and ta. And that's an alliteration. The repetition of ta makes a musical sound. And that was the second stanza. Let's move to the third. And this is the third stanza, which is so easy. The third stanza, the poet is talking about something else, which is the planet itself, how big and how huge it is. The last one, he was talking about the wind and the power of the wind, which was impressive. But here he's talking about the earth and how huge and how big the earth is. And this is why he says, "You friendly earth, how far do you go? With the wheat fields that nod and rivers that flow, with cities and gardens, cliffs and isles, and people upon you for thousands of miles." So in the first line he says, "You friendly earth, how far do you go?" The first part actually, here, he's talking to the earth. You friendly earth. He's describing the earth by the word friendly. Friendly is like nice, kind. Can the earth be kind or nice? No, and that's a personification, don't forget. But it's not included in our booklet, so I don't have to write it. But basically, we can say that's a personification. Because the earth can never be friendly. Friendly person, you know? So, you friendly earth, how far do you go? He's not asking. He's just saying, how far you can go. It doesn't mean that the earth can go anywhere. No, he's just saying that, oh, you're so big, you're so huge, you're so wide. How far do you go? With the wheat fields that nod and rivers that flow. Nod means move the head. Up and down. What do you mean, teacher? Like to move the head up and down? What moves the head up and down? Let's see. With the wheat fields that nod and rivers that flow. What's meant by wheat? Everybody knows the field, the place where we grow the plants and the crops. And what's wheat? We make bread by wheat. You know the wheat in the wheat field, in the field? Wheat actually is a very tall plant. And because of the wind, the plant moves like that, or like moves. So the wind moves the plant, which is wheat. Actually, this is very tall plant. So because the wind moves it, the poet imagines that the wheat is like somebody who is actually moving their heads up and down, So because the plant moves, the poet imagines that the plant is like somebody nodding their head. Because nods means like to move the head up and down, like like that, Like when somebody asks you to do something for them and you nod your head, not like to say yes. And the opposite is like shook his head, like he shook his head. I asked my dad for somebody and he shook his head, like say no, and nod is like to say yes. So with the wheat fields that nod, he imagines the plant is just moving this way and rivers that flow. Here he's describing some kind of movement because the river is flowing. Flow is like move in one direction. Like when I pour some water on the ground, on the floor here, it just flows in a certain direction. Flows like moves. So flow means move in one direction. So here he says, with the wheat fields that nod and rivers that flow. He's saying that the earth is so huge, so wide, it has fields, wheat fields. Actually, the plant is moving because of the wind, and the rivers flow like it's huge. With cities and gardens, cliffs and isles, what's meant if everybody knows cities and gardens? What about cliff? Cliff is like rocks next to the sea, especially when they are steep. When there are high rocks next to the sea, especially when they are steep like that, not like that, steep, not flat, steep. If they are next to the water, we call it a cliff, like small hills or mountains next to the water, just next to the water. And isles, isles means small island. You know the island? That's a small one, which we call an isle. Isle, don't say isle, huh? It's an isle. So the island, the big one, the small one is called isle. So he wants to say that the earth is so huge, is so big, that we can see cities, gardens, cliffs, like something like a mountain next to the water, and isles, it's not mountain, small islands, and people upon you for thousands of miles. And also, we can see a lot of people living on the earth for thousands of miles. And this shows how great and how huge the earth is. So basically, the third stanza, he's just talking about how great and wide the earth can be. It has wheat fields, it has rivers, it has cities, gardens, cliffs, and isles. 6 components. And here we have the idea of movement. We have so much movement in this stanza because in the second line we have wheat fields that nod. He imagines that the wheat fields are nodding their heads. The plant is nodding its head actually, and the river is flowing, like moving. So there is so much movement here, and the earth is so huge because it has all these things. Here we have a personification. Actually, the wheat fields don't have heads to nod. So that's another personification, comparing the wheat fields as somebody who can be nodding their heads. And that's it. So here we have the difficult words. This is the meaning of difficult words, and this is the explanation of the whole stanza. And here we have the figures of speech. You friendly earth, that's a personification. The poet personifies the earth as someone who can be friendly. With the wheat fields that nod, don't forget, nod means move the head up and down. And rivers that flow, that's a personification because the poet personifies the wheat fields as someone who is nodding their head. Teacher, why did you say their, not his? It could be he or she, so we say their. So when I say someone who is nodding their head. Sound devices, again, the rhyme scheme is AABB. You friendly earth, how far? Fa and fa, and that's an alliteration. The repetition of fa, we have to write it between 2 slashes like that, makes a musical sound. And that's the third stanza. Now it's time for the last stanza. Don't go anywhere, just wait. Looking at the last stanza, you can see something easily. What can you see? You can see that the last stanza was made of 4 lines. The first stanza was 4 lines, the second was 4 lines, the third was 4 lines, but this one is 6 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, and this has to be with the second, like this is part of this line. So this should be 5 and this should be 6. Why is he using 6 lines this time? We will understand this at the end. So, what does the poet say in the 4th stanza, and what is the reason why he used 4 lines or like extra lines, you know? He says, you're so great. He's saying to the world, you're so great. And I'm so small. Compared to you, I feel very small. You're so great, and I'm so small. I tremble to think of you. When I think of you, world, I tremble. Tremble is like shake. I tremble to think of you, world, at all. When I think about how big you are and how small I am, I shake. The poet is saying that. I tremble to think of you, world, at all. And yet, what's yet? Yet is like but. But. When you see the word but, yet here means but, you expect something like contrasting what we said before. And yet, but. When I said my prayers today, when I was speaking to God, when I was praying the way I can pray if I'm Muslim or Christian. So when I said my prayers today, when I speaking to my God, a whisper inside me seemed to say. He said, when I was praying to God, talking to God, asking God to do things for me, or like speaking to God, a whisper inside me. You know when you whisper? Like when you talk to somebody in this voice, you just whisper something in their ears. Whispers like when you talk in a low voice. So whisper, like talk in a low voice. A whisper inside me seemed to say. While he was praying, he heard a voice from inside of him speaking to him. You know when you speak to yourself, you feel that there's something you're talking to. What does he mean by whisper? That's one of the questions. It refers to something called conscience. This is our conscience, which is damir. This is the voice inside of us that tells us this is right and this is wrong, you know? So he says, while he was praying and thinking of how great the world is, a whisper inside him said to him something. What did it say to him? A whisper inside me seemed to say. So the inner voice of the poet is telling him something. What did it tell him? You are more than the earth. Huh? Yes. You are more than the earth. Though you're such a dot, you're like a dot. You are a dot compared to the world. The world is huge, yes. And you're tiny, yes, but you're great. You can be more important. You are more than the earth. You are more important than the earth. How can I be more important than the earth? I will tell you. You're more than the earth. Though you're such a dot. Although you're such a dot. You know why? This tells you you can love and think. You can easily love and think. You can love. You have emotions. You have feelings. And you can think. You have your own mind. But the earth cannot. The earth cannot think. The earth cannot love. Actually, this is the meaning, the real meaning of the poem. At the beginning, we thought that the poet was talking about the world and how amazing the world is. But here, we understand that he's not mainly talking about the world. He's talking about humans. We humans have a value. Everybody has their own value. We can do things. Don't think because you're tiny, you are useless. No, you can do things that the huge world cannot do. You have the ability to think. You have your own mind. The world cannot think. You have emotions inside of you. You can love, but the world cannot. So although we are tiny compared to the earth, we can do things that the earth cannot do. We can love, we can think, we have emotions, and we have our mind to use, to think, And this is the whole meaning of the poem. He just wanted to tell us that we are important. Although we are so small, we are so tiny compared to the world, we can do things that the world cannot do. Like we can love, we can think, using our emotions and our brains, And that's the meaning of the whole poem. What about the figure of the sound devices? We have some sound devices here. We have the first line that ends with small. So what's the rhyme scheme here? The first line is always A. All, small, A. What about today? A, B. Today, say. This is going to be B. Today, say. So A, B, B. Here we have, this is the end of the line. Sorry, it has to be the same line. Dot, ot. So this is going to be C. Cannot, and this is going to be C. So the rhyme scheme is A, B, B, C, C, which is different. So here we have to clean this mess that we made. And now let's just go down a little bit. These are the difficult words. This is the paraphrase of the stanza. So paraphrase is like the explanation, huh? And here we have, though you're such a dot. You're so great. No, you're so great and I'm so small. Actually, we have the word great and the word small. They are opposites. Great and small. This is what we call a contrast, and this is one of the figures of speech. So the poet used two opposite words, which are great and small, to clarify the meaning, to make the meaning clear. This is how we explain the contrast. The poet used two opposite words to clarify the meaning, to make it clear, You are more than the earth, though you're such a dot. Listen, I feel that the word such here means you're just a dot. I understand the word just here, like such, like just. And this is what I understand from the poem. So I call it a metaphor. So basically the poet compares himself to a dot. Comparing himself to a dot. This is the dot. So for me it's a metaphor. Some people say it's a simile. They think that the word such here means as. You are like a dot. So because they think it's like as, I don't see it this way. I'm just telling you. Some people think that the word just means like. If it's like, so they call it a simile. But for me, I see it a metaphor. So you're such a dot, you're just a dot. Just a dot. So I see it a metaphor. So the poet compares himself to a dot. If you say simile, you will say the poet likens himself as a dot. Okay? And here, in sound devices, we have the rhyme scheme, which is AABBCC. I tremble to think. T and t. This is alliteration. The repetition of t makes a musical sound. A whisper inside me seemed to say s and th. The repetition of s makes a musical sound. At the end, we have some WH questions to discuss. As you can clearly see that we have some questions. I will just read them with you to discuss the meanings of the questions and how to answer them. So the first question says, what's the name of the poet? So the poet's name is William Brighty Rands. Don't forget the spelling. William Brighty Rands. The second one, what's the name of the poem? What is the poem called? The poem, he means the poem. The poem. The poem. The name of the poem. But when he said poet, he means the guy. The person. The poet is the writer. But the poem, the whole poem, what's it called? The name of the poem is Great, Wide, Beautiful, Wonderful World. Third question, what's the main idea? What's the main theme of the poem? The main theme is the beauty of the world and how great it is. It also talks about human beings, as they are very important because they can love and think, which the world cannot do. You have to study it like that. And then another simple question, how many stanzas are there in the poem? There are 4 stanzas. What is the rhyme scheme of the poem? You can easily see it. Why does the poet think that the world is wonderful? Why does he think that the world is wonderful? The poet thinks that the world is wonderful because it's very beautiful. It is covered with water and grass, which make the world look nice. He also says that because it has the powerful wind and the wide earth. So this is why he thinks that the world is wonderful. It has the powerful wind and the wide earth, and actually it looks nice. So this is why he is amazed by the world. Question 7. The poet admires. Admires means loves or likes. The poet admires the power of the earth. How? Yes, the poet thinks that the world is powerful. How and why? Because it has the wind which can shake the trees and make the mills turn or move in a circle. He says that the air is everywhere because it's found on the water and on the tops of the mountains or the hills. Question 8. Why did the poet use 4 adjectives? Why on the first line he used 4 adjectives to describe the world? He just wanted to show us how amazed he was by the world. And although the world is great and huge, we are more important. We, the human beings, are more important because we can love and think, but the world cannot. So he says, the poet used 4 different adjectives to describe the world to show how great and wonderful the world is, and to show his admiration, like his love, to the world. He also wanted to show us that although the world is great and powerful, humans are very important, are still more important because they can love and think, but the world cannot. Number 9. The poet was fascinated, like amazed, like amazed by the world in the first stanza, but he changed his opinion at the end. Yes, at the beginning he said that the world is great, wonderful, beautiful, and blah, 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 blah. But at the end he said that humans are more important. Why? Because they can love and think, but the earth cannot. So he said at the end that we humans are still more important than the earth, although we are tiny, but we can love and think. At the beginning of the poem, the poet said that the world was beautiful, great, wonderful, and white. But at the end, he said that human beings are still more important because they can love and think, but the world cannot. Question 10. There is a contrast in the length of lines in the poem. Yes. Why isn't like the last stanza, like the first and the second and the third? The last stanza is made of 6 lines, but the first was 4 lines, the second was 4 lines, the third was 4 lines. Why is the last stanza made of 6 lines? This is the question. In the first 3 stanzas, the poet used 4 lines per stanza because he was just talking about the beauty of the world or the powerful air. The last stanza is made of 6 lines because he's talking about the world and human beings as well. In the last stanza, he's talking about 2 things, not 1 thing, which is the earth. He's talking about the earth, the world, and he's talking about human beings as well. So this will need more lines because he's not talking about 1 object. He's talking about many things, like the world, how great the world is, and how amazing and great and important human beings are because we can do things that the world cannot do. So he needs to actually tell us his main idea in the last stanza. This is the main idea. So he needed more lines. And that was the meaning of question 10. Question 11. What does the word whisper refer to? The poet said whisper. What does he mean by the word whisper? The word whisper refers to the poet's inner voice. You can say this and get the mark. It also refers to his conscience. What is conscience? ضميره. That's a different thing. So that was the whole poem. I hope that you understood what I said exactly in details. Thank you for listening to me. I hope that you will have another video. It will be much better than this. Thank you for listening. This is Teacher Moataz. See you next time. See you. Bye bye.